Start. Awesome. Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome to the last of our 3 Indigenous branding workshops. We have Travis Okeefe here from Tafari Huka Huka joining us today. We have a great response, I think mostly Canadian, 1 New Zealander, but I think we're going to have people joining us as the session goes on. So welcome everybody. Just a quick agenda. So we're going to start with a karakia. I'll let Travis do that. I think that's in your slide deck, Travis. So we'll kind of gloss over this quick beginning presentation. Just a welcome to everybody. One last plug for our next virtual exchange. It starts next week. I think some of the people on this call have been invited to join our next cohort. Even if you haven't been successful in your application, please follow us. You will be invited to join our final presentations on the 25th in Canada or 26th in New Zealand of March. It's going to be a really exciting time. We have a really strong cohort, so I'm really excited to have you all attend and be a part of that. Okay, just a few house rules. If you can, leave your video on. I think I'll be the first to say, really tired of talking to computer screen. I wish I could talk to you all in person, but this is what it is. So if you can, leave your video on so we can see your face. If you don't want to be recorded, leave it off, that's fine. Everybody's pretty good with staying on mute. Let's all engage with respect as Indigenous people do. I don't know how, Travis, if you want to have questions during the presentation or if you want to leave it till the end, let us know.
Yeah, I wanted to make it a discussion. So I don't want to make it just like a talking head at the I've been to too many of those presentations. By the end, I'm sort of like going to sleep and you might hear me start snoring. So I want to learn more about the people who are here and the aspirations around e-commerce. So I'll facilitate that.
Awesome. And if you have anything that you want to ask that you don't want recorded, just let me know and we will stop recording. So with that, I think, Travis, you're more than welcome to share your screen. I'll let you introduce yourself because I certainly won't do it justice.
Sure.
But over to you.
No problem. Okay, I'll just start with the karakia. I'll say it in English. Which is for those that understand. Karakia means prayer, or a way that in our culture that we open up our discussions. Let peace be the pandemic. Let kindness be the contagion. Let love be the miracle. Mauri ora. That's it. Kia ora, everyone. So my name is Travis Okeefe. I am from a tribe called Ngāti Porou here in New Zealand. Which is on the east coast of the North Island in New Zealand. It's quite a remote area. Generally, if you're from there, you're doing forestry, farming, or fishing, not entrepreneurship. My mountain that is called Puke Hapopo. My river is called Waimoko. I come from a small village inside that tribal area called Whangara, which is a population of 300. So I grew up in that rural context. My background is I'm an entrepreneur. And what that means is that I'm a problem solver. And over 30 years of doing it, I've had started multiple businesses, maybe, I don't know, 15, 16 businesses. Many of those have been expensive PhDs and learning lessons the hard way. A couple did okay for me. And more recently, in the last 10 years, I've been doing a social enterprise. So a business with a double bottom line, doing good, making money, called Te Whare Huka Huka. And partly what I'm here to talk about is that today. I've got a presentation. What I want to do is I just want to make this a bit more engaging than these, talking head presentations. I want to hear from you guys and I want to answer your questions and make it a two-way thing. I just want you to be mindful that, we only got 60 minutes. I don't know about Canadians, but back here in New Zealand, a lot of our people like to tell you about the life history of their tribe and their ancestors and their ancestors and so forth. So we're just trying to limit our and be mindful and respectful for others to allow them space. I'm just going to share my screen. One moment. Okay. Do everyone see that? Okay, I want to do something. I just want you guys to test your, in your Zoom account is a button. And I just want you to push the thumbs up button, which is if you have a look down the bottom, there should be something around there for reaction. Okay, excellent. Yeah, excellent. I'll make sure everyone's got it. Excellent. Who else? Have you guys all found it? And it's important because I want you to use this button as we go along so that you're engaging and you're not sitting there listening to me, go blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to hear any snoring. So that's really important. The other thing I want you to do is put your name in the chat box, because I also want to engage with you in the chat box. So if you put your name, and then at the end, we'll keep a record of those names, and I'll be able to follow up with you with some of the tools, free tools that I can contribute back to you to help you learn more about e-commerce. So if you put your names in the chat box now, that'd be great. And Raylene, I need your assistance because I'm looking at the presentation. If you can just feed back to me who's in the chat box or who's behind, and do we need to wait for others to put their names in?
Will do. We have John Blanchette, Sarah Jacquenay, Sharon Marshall, Leanne Bellegarde, Leighton Gall, Tarua Grant. Hey, Tarua. We had Eugene as well. Miles Joliffe. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing your name, everybody. I think that's most of us.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. I'll get into it. I'll try and move it quickly through this. This will just give you some context about who I am. I'll tell you a little bit of my achievements, and I'm only doing those, achievements to, demonstrate to you that I'm qualified in making some of the claims around e-commerce and that side of things from what we've achieved. But essentially, 10 years ago, we started an organization called Te Whare Hoka Hoka. This was a name gifted to us from one of our nations or tribal partners that we did a lot of work called Ngāti Pūkenga. It stands for, and the translation in English is the House of Innovation. Te is the, whare is house, hoka hoka is the froth on the waves. So when the oceans boil over and you get that white froth from the oceans. And for our people back in the day, before we didn't have that written language, so we look for symbolism in nature. And the symbolism of the froth frothing up is a new bubble, and the bubble explodes, and the next one comes along and builds up and explodes. And so that is the symbolization of innovation in this context. That's what the tribal elders gave us. It's a taonga, it's a treasure. And so we proudly carry that name, Te Whare Hoka Hoka. It was about the work that we did. We're quite innovative in our approaches. Being a social enterprise, we have the vision to improve the lives of 10 million Indigenous people. In New Zealand, there are only 600,000. So our aspiration is to go and work with all you guys on this call here and how we might contribute to achieve that vision with you guys. 10 years, big journey. We've been up and down a lot of different avenues, particularly as a social enterprise. So that means we are partly funded by our clients, partly funded by philanthropists, partly funded by government service contracts. A little bit about us. Over the last 10 years, we've trained or coached over 1,000 Māori leaders right across New Zealand in multiple tribes. I've been out in at the grassroots. It says 8 years here, but there's another 2 years before that. We've won awards for our team. Have been a very dedicated team of about 13 of us, And for their efforts, we've won various awards, from coaching awards to innovation awards in our country. What we do, we have largely 4 things that we do in New Zealand. Just move that. So we work with our Māori, or our nations, or our tribes, with our leaders, and we help them to generate a business strategy. And a strategy is just a fancy word for going, I'm here at point A today and I want to get to point Z, whatever that looks like. For some, it's about money. For others, it's about social impact. And then we help them work out the pathway or roadmap to get there. So that's business strategy. The next one down is governance training. So governance is, we train the leaders at the top of these community organizations how to strengthen their practice to operate their governance in the community organization context, not a corporate context, community organization. Then the last thing that we do a range of business coaching for Indigenous SMEs, Māori SMEs. And that's everything from fashion businesses to forestry businesses to farms to dairy, very broad range. And underneath that business coaching comes a wide range of other variations. So we also act like consultants, where a client will come to us and say, hey, you know, we've got dairy farms on our land, but a lot of our families want to grow hemp. Can you do a project and research about hemp and tell us whether it's worthwhile us converting all our land over into building hemp? And we would go out and research from the market end. So we'd start and look and go, what's selling in the market, what products, what price points? And we'd work our way back going, okay, what's the cost of production and to meet the market demand? So we're quite market-led, and that's an important distinction from many others who are production-led. So they make hey, we're going to do a farm and we'll sell whatever product at the end of it. We're the other way. Hey, what does the market want? And let's build it, what the production capacity down there then. By the way, you know, that example of dairy to hemp farm, for those that are curious about that, in short, I can say this is a public knowledge now. Our advice was don't grow hemp. And the reason why is because Canada's been doing it for a long time, and we can't meet their production costs. So that's not a good one to get into. But we did say to them, actually, what you want to do is buy the Canadian raw product and put a brand on it and some fancy packaging, sell it into the US under your own brand, and you'll make lots of money that way. So those are examples of some of the things projects that we can involve. 10 years, there's quite a range of those. Hey, Raylene, I need you. If they're asking questions, can you jump in and just ask those for me, because I can't see that screen?
Yep, absolutely. So Miles just asks, he says he's interested in governance training as it relates to achieving free, prior, and informed consent. That's a good question, actually. Do you have free, prior, and informed consent, or some variation thereof, when it comes to kind of major projects or infrastructure in New Zealand? And do you guys do any of that?
What does that mean? Like, give me a little bit more, Miles, about that. Just explain that.
I think we're wondering, as Indigenous people in Canada, what it means as well. So, for example, I have a background in oil and gas. If a company wants to go and expand a pipeline or build a new pipeline, they need to engage with the Indigenous communities whose traditional territories are along that line.
Gotcha.
and essentially obtain their free, prior, and informed consent. Do you have the same in New Zealand?
Yes, we do. It's called the RMA, or Resource Management Act. So that's where they need to consult with the local landholders or tribes, nations, and get that consent and pass tick the box to enable them to build a project or so forth. There's advantages, and I won't go too deep. There's advantages in that act and how some of the innovative iwi that we're working with, leveraging that act to create employment and jobs. So around the social procurement side of elements of it. Is there any other questions before I drop over to?
No. Yeah, Leanne just reminded us that stems from UNDRIP, which is correct. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Is that something that Te Whare Huka Huka kind of gets into, or are you more?
No. We're in our lane, so it's really important. One of the principles that we hold in our company is to say no. Focus. The word focus. What does that mean? That means saying no. So we say no to anything that's not in our lane. We've only a small team, a small resource. We've got to be very targeted about where we play. So we broadly, easiest way to think about us is we work with the leaders and we strengthen their community organizations. So that magnifies their impact that they have for for the services that they deliver to their families. So a lot of the tribes that we're working with, they have health services, social services, education services, justice services. And our theory of change to improve the lives of 10 million Indigenous is we can't reach all those Indigenous people. What we've got to do is work with those organizations that can and strengthen them, which is why we work around the strategy, which is why we work around the governance elements of it. And quite often what we find is those are the dysfunctional areas that block their organization. For example, in governance, we find a lot with our people, the elders who get elected onto those in those governance positions, they don't have that governance experience, or they don't have that commercial experience. What they have is, normally they're fishermen, forestry, farmer, and so forth, or social workers or teachers, and they've got other strengths. And then they're voted on by the communities to go into these positions of running large tribal organizations with multi-millions of dollars. And quite often what happens is they don't know their roles and responsibilities. And how that manifests is that the CEOs and the operations team, they get hindered from implementing the work, and there are constant frustrations with that they bring us in to unblock that. And what we do is we educate our leaders about the roles and responsibilities and how it works. And then that unblocks the organization, and they create great impact. Any other questions around that side?
Yeah, I'm just going to remind everybody, if you have a question and you would like to ask it, just raise your hand or just interject or send me a note in the chat. And
I'd love to hear from you guys as well. It'd be great if you guys could ask your own questions. Hey, okay, cool. I'm here about the e-commerce arm. So that's the other thing that we do. And e-commerce, we've been doing for about 7 years. And just to give you some of that context, and where it all started, we worked with a iwi, and they had a tribe, and they had a vision to improve the well-being of their people. And they didn't have much money. They only had $5 or $10 million to do it. They had a few thousand of people. And they came to us and said, how might we do this? How might we grow our impact, social impact? And so we did some research. We found a bit of research that says the best return on investment for social impact is growing the disposable household income. Because it has a multiplier effect. It affects, now, if you could do that in families, struggling families, then they could afford the petrol to go to the doctor. They could afford to rent warmer housing. They could afford to pay their parking fines or other fines so that they didn't get more fines and compound the original mistake. They could have access to the internet and pay for those sort of things. So growing the disposable household income has a multiplier effect. From that, at the time, I was reading a book called The 4-Hour Work Week by a guy called Tim Ferriss. And in it, he talks about creating businesses online, and how you can, by creating a business online, you're able to trade globally. And so I married the two up, social impact. Okay, why don't we grow disposable household income? Tim Ferriss's idea of creating an e-commerce store, and I went about building a program and testing that in our Indigenous market, learning about what worked, what didn't work, and that was 7 years. So 7 years of that. And more recently, and this year, we have a number of different e-commerce training programs now. I will go further, just explain that a little bit more context. E-commerce, a lot of people don't know what the hell is e-commerce. E-commerce is the activity of electronically buying and selling of products. And I'll put services online over the internet. So that's all it is. It's just electronic commerce. is a simple way. And so that's my definition of it. A lot of people get fixed. It's only selling a product, like some widget of some sort. I don't disagree. Along that journey of building out Indigenous e-commerce program, I studied 24 e-commerce gurus. I was very immersed in it for 2 years. And these guys weren't theorists, they were practitioners. They had 7-8 figure e-commerce businesses. So they tested and trialed different processes and systems. I learned those. I applied that, and I created a e-commerce business, a second business called Nuku, which is this brand here that's in front of you. It went on to generate over 7 figures in e-commerce, validating that their systems work for Māori. And then since that, I took that knowledge from Nuku, which I'll go in deeper in a minute, and then I created another program or revised our existing program over COVID period called Kahau I Te Ao, which is an e-commerce training program that teaches whānau family members how to create their own e-commerce business. So SMEs, mum and pop SMEs, how do I sell my bags or my fabrics or my clothing or my food and beverage out to the world? And so we have a program that teaches that. A Canadian company invested in it, lo and behold, during COVID, which is fantastic, which is Shopify. So Shopify invested into us, said, like, we really like the results you guys are getting and the program. How might we work with you guys to expand it into other Indigenous nations? Because they haven't seen anything like what we've been doing. And we said, great, thank you. We're keen, we're on board. So that's a little bit about my context around e-commerce. How does it work between the two organizations? I just want to touch here a little bit. Te Whare Huka Huka, that provides the capability building and getting organizations investment ready and the community stuff. Nuku provides the commercial elements and the online sales side of things. We use the profits from Nuku to subsidize and fund a lot of our work into Whare Huka Huka. So quite often we're being a social enterprise, quite often a lot of our clients over into Whare Huka Huka, they might only have 25% to 30% of our cost of doing work with them to create social impact. So when you only got, we've got a 70% deficit there that we need to find. So Nuku subsidizes some of that, or we do government service contracts to make up the other 70%. And then that enables us to do one piece of social impact in the market. That's it. Any questions to any of that? I'll just check in. Yeah. Hi, how are you going? You want to ask your question?
Yeah, so I don't know if I am on my iPad, so I can't see the gallery view, but I just had a quick question. In Canada, I find a lot of our Indigenous nations struggle with Wi-Fi access, and also some also have maybe not the struggle with online literacy. And so I was just wondering if that's similar in New Zealand, and how do you help support those pieces for your e-commerce platform?
Yeah, yes. In short, thanks. Great question. In short, yes, we do experience that. A lot of our tribal members are rural and remote. So those that are in the city, they're fine. Although there's still a lack of digital literacy, i.e. how to apply and use the internet, other than games or searching Google or Facebook. But in the rural regions, the government have supported an initiative to roll out a backbone infrastructure, and that's made up of fiber, but also microwave. So some areas you can't get fiber in there, that they're running microwave over periods of distance. So that means it has to have a direct line, one tower to the other, and then they're hopping that up the east coast or up the coast. In regards to that's the first bit, how the infrastructure, we're not involved in that side of things, but the government is. The other element, how to get connected, is digital literacy. We are involved in that. We do our capability building around how SMEs, so Indigenous businesses, might use the internet, such as through e-commerce, to improve their revenue streams. So that's the element we focus. We're quite specific on that niche. When we talk about digital literacy in our country, there's like a rainbow, a wide range of lack of literacies. We're working more towards the SMEs and how to apply it. Other than, hey, I've got a computer and a laptop and I can send emails. We're not there. We're in the next bit of going, okay, great, you're doing emails, but how do I do my marketing on there? How do I do my manufacturing in China? How do I do my manufacturing in China, and then how do I sell it in USA, my products? You know, that's the literacy that we're focused in. And we have a program that demonstrates how to do that, which is called, I spoke about it earlier, which is the one that Shopify invested in, which is called Kahal I Te Ao program. Does that answer your question? Awesome, awesome. Okay, anyone else got any more questions before I move through?
No, I think we're good to go.
Good to go. Okay, this is just to give you a couple of examples of the wide range of products that Nuku manufactures. It's a wide range. I won't drop into it too much. We have a number of brands. It's all sorts of things, from meat injectors to beer growlers to pool cues to pet gloves. It's quite a wide range. And doing e-commerce, these are the steps that we teach. So we teach end to end, not just the marketing side of things or the advertising parts. We teach everything from, hey, I'd love to do this, but I don't have a product. Okay, so how do you do product research? And then, okay, cool, I've got an idea. I want to, I want to manufacture phone cases, for an example. I want to manufacture a phone case, and then we work with them to do their branding, logo design, like what does their brand look like, and how do you make yourself different in the market compared to your competitors. Then we'd work with them around packaging. How do you want to package in a way that makes logistics efficient? So if you're manufacturing in Canada or New Zealand and you want to ship it to Canada, how do we do that so that our costs are economical by the design of the packaging? By keeping weight low and so forth? Or how do we survive a drop test, like a 5-foot drop test? It needs to be packaged in cardboard. We've got glass products. How does it survive when the courier chucks it? So we work there. Then we'd work into sourcing. So how do we find manufacturers, global manufacturers? With Nuku, we manufacture in China. So what's the process of finding manufacturers in China? Like, how do you ensure that the quality is going to be there? How do you ensure that you're actually going to get your goods? We run through all that. And then once, okay, cool, we've manufactured, how do we ensure that the quality control is good? So that I haven't just spent $10,000 getting these products manufactured, and then once it gets to Canada, my products are, I'm getting rejects. So it's around production. And then we also work on logistics, how to get it from the manufacturer over to Canada, to a warehouse in British Columbia, from there to be centrally distributed across other parts of Canada. So we work with all that side of things. And then the second to last box, online launch. Once the products are in market, how do you advertise it to get people to come to purchase it, whether it's on a platform such as Amazon in your market? Here it will be, New Zealand will be Trade Me. How do I market that? Or if you're working your own website, how do I do that? And that's called launching. And there's some keys to launching. The keys are, how do you get onto page 1? When you're searching on Google and you're putting some search term in, page 2, you can hide a dead body in page 2. No one goes there. So you want to be on page 1. And so how do I get there? And we teach some real hacks about how you might do that. For example, just to share you a quick hack. So the way that Amazon would put you onto page 1 is this thing called an algorithm. An algorithm is a fancy word for saying a computer formula which determines how popular your product is. What we do is, it's not cheating. I think it's being really smart about it, as we call it spiking the algorithm. So what we do is we trick the algorithm. We research the top competitors on page 1. We look at how many sales are they making. So let's just say product X selling a phone case. is selling 100 units per day. Now, what we would do is we would do a product giveaway. So we would sell, if we had out of our warehouse, we would sell 100, or we would give away coupons for free, or 10% or 50% of the value, depending on what your strategy is. And we would give away 101 of them. And we would do that for a period of 10 to 12 days. And if we did that 101 at 10 to 12 days, the algorithm, which is a computer formula, looks at that and says, wow, this new product, it's selling a lot of products. It must be real. It's selling more than the top guys. And then it takes you off the back page, spikes you, and you're straight onto the first page. So that's a little secret. That's a little secret from us. It's worth a lot of money, but how to spike the algorithm, get you onto the first page. But getting on the first page is just only part of the story. It's how do you stay there? But you've got to learn these tricks on how to get there. So that's the sort of things that we do around online launching. And then the other things that come about in e-commerce is, okay, I'm running out of stock. How do I reorder so that I keep my inventory levels not too high? So I've got high warehousing costs, but enough so that I'm not going to run out of stock, and I've got enough time to order more products from China, manufacturing 1 month, 1 month in shipping overseas to Glendon market, another month going through customs and doing the online launching bit before I get it in. So I really need to optimize my inventory. And then we optimize the advertising to drive more sales. That's the length of doing e-commerce end to end. That if you're doing an e-commerce business broadly, that's the model that you would be applying. There are variations to this. There are variations where you can outsource a lot of the manufacturing side and just do the sales and marketing side for someone else. This is called drop shipping. So someone else is doing the manufacturing of phone cases, and I'm going to do the advertising on Google, on Facebook of the phone cases of someone else's brand. And then when I get someone orders off me, I'm going to send an email over to the manufacturer saying, please send my customer a red or black phone case, and this is their address, thanks. And I pay the manufacturer to do that and send it over, and then I take my clip of the margin. So that's another variation on the model you're just seeing here. It's called drop shipping. There are a wide range of other models as well. Any questions to this? And I'm going fast because I'm trying to give you guys space. And you can come back and watch the videos if it's like us sucking out of a fire hose, and you're like, what the hell was that guy on about? But I want to create space.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Miles.
Hi, Travis.
Hi.
That's great. Sorry, and apologies to Sarah. I had typed in what I thought was into the group chat. So I was just curious, instead of giving it away, could you sell it to yourself? Let's say if you're selling from New Zealand to Canada, that you still get that increase in page length without losing the cost of giving away the product for free. I'm just curious as a different strategy.
I've never done that strategy, but technically you could. If you had two entities, you probably could, but like the way the algorithm works, it's got to go to different addresses, so you would need multiple addresses to enable that strategy to be done.
But this is an idea, but I understand that you would anticipate that basically as an advertising cost to increase your page rank.
Yeah, that's right. When you're working out your modeling about your business case about whether to sell a certain product, one of the things that we do is in the product research stage in this diagram is we research and going, okay, we're going to have to rank on Amazon to get the first page. We're going to have to give away 1,000 units or 1,100 units. What's the cost of that? We add that into our launch costs, and that's just the cost of doing business. Yeah. So that's how we apply it. Any other questions? Great question. I like that. Good critical thinking outside the box. Anyone else got any questions or want to go deeper in any of these areas here?
So John has a question. I can read it out. Oh, no, you go ahead, John.
Yeah, sorry. I just was getting my thoughts together and just wanted to put it out there. Travis, less on the product side, but more on the services side. have you seen or heard, or have you created anything, an app that entrepreneurs could use to sell their services in a larger market?
I personally haven't looked, but the process would be to go into the App Store or Google, the Google App Store, and research and put the keywords in, see what else pops up. Me personally, I would think just straight off the top of back of that, I think there's existing other platforms like such as Upwork, Upwork, where you've got a similar thing where you can hire people from different countries, or they sell their services, and you can hire people from many markets. In fact, that's how we have our team. Our team is only a few people are here, and we have a team that's spread China, America, Philippines, Indonesia, India, Australia, and New Zealand. And so that's how we've used it.
Okay.
Doing that way, yeah.
Appreciate it.
No problem.
I think Leanne has a question. Go ahead, Leanne.
Hey, Leanne.
Thanks. I was just wondering, on Facebook, there seems to be a lot of markets that are themed around Indigenous goods and services, particularly what I might call micro entrepreneurs, but other smaller entrepreneurs as well. Do you see this e-commerce option as a better alternative for them? One, and two, one of the things that concerns me about some of the platforms is the exploitation of our Indigenous data as well as our customer data for other purposes with no direct benefit to the users of these platforms directly. And I just wonder if that's something you've thought about at all.
Cool. I'll answer two questions there. I'll come back to the second one, but I'll take the first one first. So the first one is great questions, by the way. The first one is for micro enterprises that are already selling via social media, in comparison to the methodology that we've talked about here, which might be better for them. And I need a little bit more data, but I'll just draw some assumptions to draw that conclusion. The method of selling on to Amazon, if you've got a product, is the challenge that people can't see if they're early in the stage, is the working capital challenge. So working capital means the amount of products that you have to carry in operations before you get your profits back. So just to explain that, when I order products, it takes 1 month to manufacture a product in China. Then there's a month on the boat to get the boat over. And then there's a month into launching. And then normally I've carried 3 months stock. So 6 months in total. So if I spend $100 at the first month, I'm not going to get my $120 profit back until 6 months later. So to enable to do that, I've still got costs coming out. So to enable me to do that, I need money supporting me all the way through that. And so that's called the working capital component. So that's one of the big challenges. So if you have a medium-sized company and you have access to banking services, banks that have facilities that manage this, and it's a common practice that they solve. A couple of tips if you're a micro enterprise and you want to do this is you get a Amex Gold card, which gives you 55 days of before you have to pay for your fees. You go back to the manufacturer and you negotiate with the manufacturer that you're paying half of the fee up front, the other half until they land the products in the market. So until it lands in Canada, and then you pay them with the Amex, which gives you 55 days. And then that's helped to manage your working cash flow in an innovative entrepreneurial way. So just going back to the micro enterprises side of things, they still have variations of this, maybe not as sophisticated as this, because they're still manufacturing the goods themselves and they're still selling it. I think it depends on the good, and I think that the which way do you go? There's pros and cons for both of them. So for example, do you go for an Amazon platform? Now, the thing about Amazon, it has lots of potential customers already there. So if you're just putting up your shop inside Amazon, you've already got potential customers which you can market to get. If you're not, and you're doing your own website like a Shopify store outside of the platforms, then the challenge with that, the great is you've got control and you own the relationship with the customer, or you can talk to them later on, send them emails and stuff. In Amazon, you can't do that, but in Shopify, you can. And with your own Shopify store. And so, but the disadvantage of a Shopify store is you have to be good at generating your own potential customers to come into your store. So pros and cons for both things. And there's complexity about how do I specifically answer that around for micro enterprises, because there's many variations that can be applied. The second question, if you just say that to me again, and I'll attempt to answer that.
That would, the second question related to the preservation or the ability to control your own data, as opposed to it being most of these user agreements for e-commerce platforms or even social media platforms have this catch-all where all of your data when you sign on is theirs to use and exploit, and very little of knowledge of that comes back to you, or very little financial benefit that they make in promoting to others through the use of your data. So is that is there, that's a really big, maybe that's beyond what you're dealing with in your e-commerce.
This is a big, it's a big issue. They're pretty sneaky about how they do that, those big platforms, or any apps that you sign up to. You sign up to Facebook, you've got Facebook on your phone, you are signing your phone away. They have access to everything, including to your friends. The challenge, it's a chicken and egg. There are different legislations depending on which jurisdiction you're in. Europe have some very strong privacy laws about where that data is housed. New Zealand, I'm not up to date. I think we were evolving, changing so that the New Zealand data, if it's held, has to be held in New Zealand. Then the label to, if you've got on the magic box, Google, if you type in the keywords, magically the answer is going to pop up, which is called data sovereignty. Would be the way to explore that to find more about that information. So that's probably as deep as I can go, because it's not so much an expertise that I've got there. Just a couple of ideas.
Thanks.
No problem. Anyone else got any more questions?
Miles just reminded us that the rule of thumb is if the product is free, you are the product. And I think that is very, very true.
Cool.
Maybe one question for Travis. It's Miles. Just around, I guess that your first step in terms of selecting a product or service, and I guess maybe around innovative products where there's maybe not a lot of analogs, or that you're looking for like a white space, and that it's not a cell phone. It's not a cell phone case where there's a clear-cut example. You have any called blue ocean strategy experience for, to use a marketing term, hate to use lingo, but no, this area really well. In short, my recommendations, if you're at the product research and you might be Indigenous nation or a Indigenous entrepreneur, and you're going, well, what can I make? What should I make? And I reckon this is 80% of the key, finding the right product to make to sell to the market. And I reckon you've got to go back and do the research, not on the product, as you've got to find the white space, if that's, or the blue ocean, using that language, which means you've got to find, and the way that we do it is you start with an individual that you are going to serve. And we call that, there's language in e-commerce, they call it customer avatar. So if you want to find out more information, put that into the magic box, customer avatar. And you get really, really clear. And this is one of the key secrets that people often underestimate the power of. You must know that customer that you intend to serve very, very well. Ideally, it's you. You're selling to yourself because you know yourself really well. And what you're looking for in the customer avatar is the problems that they face. What's frustrating them? What's
preventing them from achieving their problem or challenges that they've got. You need to understand those, and we call them pain points. Once you have the pain points, then what you do is you look for solutions or products that solve the pain points. And if you do it on a basis of looking at it from one person, it becomes easier. And then when you do it at one person, then you go, what you do is you test it. You go, okay, I understand what the pain point of Travis is, my customer avatar. He's frustrated because just to use an example, an innovative product is an app on Travis's phone. And Travis has a problem with using apps. So therefore, what I'm going to do is my solution is makes it easy for Travis because maybe Travis has got blind, and my solution is around making the app blow up so for his disability he can see it, for example. And so what you do is you would test your account. So you would test your innovative product by doing a low cost test by trying to sell it to Travis. And so what you do is one way to do it is a brochure, a shiny brochure, advertising your product or innovation, explaining quite clearly what the problem is that you solve and how your product solves it. And then you would try and sell that to Travis and see whether you could get an order from Travis. And if you could, that would indicate to do further testing and to find more Travises. So I'm not saying specifically answer your question how to find the white space, but I'm giving you a process which comes back in thinking of the customer first and who you might serve. Yeah. Does that answer your question? That's one.
Oh, yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, I guess you describe it as to use an Elon Musk term, like from first principles thinking, from the lowest divisible unit.
Excellent. Yeah, there's actually, yeah. I mean, if you wanted to go deeper in this, jump onto the magic box and Google Lean Startup, Lean, L-E-A-N Startup. It talks about this process in depth. Came out of Berkeley, California, from a professor, Steve Blank. It's the cutting edge of entrepreneurial techniques currently. And that'll help you describe exactly what I described as the methodology that's used. Anyone else? I can't see everyone. Oh, hey, come on, ask in, jump in.
I have a question that is a little bit branding, but it has to do with the authenticity or integrity around what is an authentic Indigenous-owned business, an Indigenous branded product, or do you have some sort of, is there something in your territory that addresses that, that there is some sort of unified, I'm a real Indian, I really made this, or I'm a real Indian, this is my business, and you're helping me make increased disposable income, or what, that whole authenticity issue?
Sure. Yep, cool. I'll jump into it. There's two parts to that. We have explored that. What defines that? That's a big conversation. So if I use another industry, social enterprise, to describe it, in social enterprise, what's the difference between a business and a social enterprise? And in New Zealand, the label that we use is a business that reinvests over 50% of its profits back into its social mission. That's the definition of social enterprise for us. 50% of its profits back into a social mission. For some parts of our government, what defines as a Māori business, it is a business that has, I think one ministry calls it a business that has ownership of at least 51% by a Māori or Indigenous person. And then that would define. But what I've found is different government organizations have different definitions, so it's horses for courses. We did look at an Indigenous badge. Could we do an Indigenous badge and do a joint venture with Shopify and put that up on Shopify stores? That's an early conversation. We haven't gone any further with it. Also, I just want to dive in something left field relevant to this if you're into e-commerce, is our experience of when people search for products online. There's this thing called keywords. Keywords are the words that you put in the magic box in Google search box to find your products. And the keywords that people use to find products, funny enough, they aren't searching, particularly if you're looking on Amazon, for example, they don't search for Indigenous. They don't search for Maori. They don't search for New Zealand. So that's not where our Indigenous uniqueness is powerful. It's not there, but it's somewhere else. And I'll explain, I'll get to it, but I just want to frame up the context. So in e-commerce, you don't market that you're Indigenous. That's not what you do. You market the things that they look for are, for example, if I use a honey product, wild, natural, organic. Those are the key: organic honey, wild honey, natural honey. That's what they use to search for the product first. Then when we have searched for the product, where you do use your Indigenous uniqueness is on the product itself. Because now that I've found the product, people are going through, their mindset changes, going, hey, I've found what I'm looking for. Now, how do I rate this product over another one that I've seen previously in my mind? And that's where there's a stat inside e-commerce called conversion. Conversion means the number of people that come into my store. How do I convert them into a sale? And I think there's a great positioning for Indigenous to enhance and talk about our provenance, our story of where we come from, talk about our beliefs and our philosophies, and to get if the purchaser aligns with those, then they'll purchase on that perspective. For example, how we might look after the land or the bees if we're using honey, or how this comes from a pristine natural area, this type of honey. So we could use those elements and the conversion. So it's about how we use what we think is important around the Indigenous keywords. We use them on the product, but not in trying to get people to come to your store. And it's a subtle difference, but very, very important if you want to win and succeed in e-commerce. Does that answer your question? Choice.
That was very helpful. Thank you.
Welcome. Would anyone ask up before I move in to another one, or you? Okay.
I think we're good.
So I just want to drop into a little bit about our e-commerce services. Our approach from Te Whare Huka when we're working with Indigenous, we start by doing diagnosing first. It's very difficult for me to offer the right suggestion or ideas for a Indigenous business or individual organization until I understand their context. The context of how much resource they've got, how many people they've got, how much money they've got, how much time they've got, what capabilities they've got on board. Like, I need to understand all that so that I can offer them the best tailored advice that I've got for them. So we do diagnostic. Once we've done a diagnostic and we understand that, we start working out a strategy. Remember, strategy is how to get from A to Z. And then once we've got that, then we put them through our Kahal program, which I talked about, just teaching all the basics of e-commerce and all those steps. And then once they've got their store up and operating, we coach them on how to make more money as they go through, how to double their revenues online sales. And it just gives you an insight of some of the services that we offer around the e-commerce side of things. Brother, kia ora, brother. I see that you put your hand up and you've got a question.
Go ahead, Eugene.
Eugene,
Yes.
where are you from, bro?
Hi, Travis, here in the wonderful centre of Te Ao Aotearoa. So, hey, but yeah, so look, great to hear you. All I wanted to outline, I've just posted up a comment, and so I was a bit slow hitting my reaction thing. That issue about cultural authenticity is quite a big one. I've posted up a quick link on our intellectual property site. There is guidance there, but I know for artists in particular, it's an issue. And one of the big things that I just wanted to raise, one thing that I'm seeing, Travis, is what is great is a lot of tauiwi, so non-tribal entities, are incorporating our culture, incorporating our language, into their day-to-day business. Some of our telcos are doing great stuff in that space, but it's a fine line between cultural appreciation and cultural appropriation. And it gets quite tricky because actually are people using that cultural identity to increase sales that don't actually derive back to that culture's benefit. So that was just a few comments that I wanted to add in from that, but that was from the last bit, so I was a wee bit slow.
Sure, bro. Good to add that. Kapai. Any other questions before you just move on? I want to try and get enough time to get into those questions at the back end. Leanne, you got one? No? Okay, cool. I'll move into that one. So when we think about, I think I mentioned this before, there's different, when we think about e-commerce, there are different ways to do it. There's the shop standalone website side of things. And by the way, I just want to mention this because this is very, very important, is there's a lot of people out in the market and they say, build a website, and they will come. It's just not true. It's rubbish. It's total rubbish. And it's like, it doesn't work. You need a system. And so like we teach a system, there's 3 components to the system. And we're not talking about platforms here. I'm diversing over to another area, which is around the website side of things. The system has something at the front end, which is called traffic. Traffic is a fancy word for saying potential customers. So you need to work out a systematic way, which is a repeatable way to get customers to come into your store. In the middle is where the website sits. And so what we've got to do with our website is convert people that come to the store into sales. So how we might do that is, like, for example, imagine the analogy of a supermarket. Once they're in the supermarket, how do we get them to purchase stuff? So that's what has to happen in the store. Then the third part, the third element of it is something called an autoresponder. An autoresponder is a piece of software that once someone leaves the supermarket or your store, how do I get them to come back and purchase again? And that's an autoresponder, the tool is called. And all it does is it sends pre-written emails in a sequence to entice your customers to come back into your store. That's very, very important in e-commerce because 30 to 40% of all revenues come from the autoresponder, not the store. So when someone says, hey, put a store up and build it and they'll come, the challenge with that discussion or thinking is, yeah, but you're leaving 30 to 40% of revenues without, if you're not taking into account the autoresponder and how you get people to come back into the store. So that's a little bit of off-track topic around systems, but then we have the platforms. A platform is a fancy way to say there's Amazon in the middle, and then there is a customer who's looking to purchase something, and then there's a seller who wants to sell, and Amazon's in the middle trying to facilitate those interactions. Each one of these requires different strategies because they all have their own uniqueness. And what I mean by that, Amazon has an algorithm, which I talked about, that computer program that identifies how to go onto page 1 as one element of it. And you need to understand that if you want to effectively sell on Amazon. But guess what? Facebook has it too. Have you ever sent a post out on Facebook and you haven't got many likes and so forth? Well, that's the algorithm. That's the algorithm doing that to you. And there's the quick tip about how to spike the algorithm, or one way to spike the algorithm is to use, to get a group of friends, when you post within the first hour, get them to comment, like, and share your post in the first hour. If you have 10 friends to do that, what happens is the algorithm of Facebook goes, hey, this post is getting really good engagement. I'm going to share it with a whole lot more of his friends and family. So that's how you spike the algorithm. And that's why each platform requires its own, when it comes to the marketing elements of it, its own nuances. Any questions around the platform side of things? I think I've got someone there. Is it?
Yep. Leanne has a question. This is
okay.
A little bit unrelated to what we're talking about now, but how do you measure your social enterprise impact? I think that's a good question.
Oh, yeah, it's a range of different things. So, the best way to look at a social enterprise is around their theory of change. So if we have our vision, improve the lives of 10 million Indigenous people, what's our theory of change? How do we create social impact? We create social impact by strengthening community organizations so that their services spread the impact of whatever their social elements they're doing. For example, some have education services, some have health services, some have social services, and so forth. And the way that we measure our impact is we look at the number of people that those community organizations serve. That gives us, so this community organization serves 2,000 Indigenous people, for example. And then we look at, have we added value or strengthened their governance? Have we added value and strengthened their programs? So we look at that from that perspective. And then we also measure how we have added value around finding funding for them because they don't have that money. So it takes a whole lot of resource, last year we gave away 427,000 in grants or scholarships. And how we did that was partly from Shopify, partly from a government ministry, and partly from our organization writing off our profits to reinvest it into the social mission. So we gave away 400-something thousand worth of scholarships. Those are some of the ways. Ultimately, I think you need those when you're articulating that story to potential funders, but we're not strong in that area. We're sort of just doing it, and if we feel like it's the right thing to do, then we'll do it. Yeah, and so that's really what drives a lot of what we do. Is our social enterprise is owned 50% by me, 50% by another business partner.
So how's your conversion rate?
Of which bit?
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Gotta, thank you. Okay, we'll keep going. Let's jump into the next slide. And okay, cool. We're into the Kōrero side. I just want to go around. I want to get your feedback around these questions and have that discussion with you. So I want to use Raylene to pick out people, and I want you to just answer some of these questions, and then let's just have a discussion around this and see how I can help. The first question is, why are you interested in e-commerce? Is it because that you're interested? Is it because that you serve some people in your organization, or what is that? And that'll help me to distill my own advice or recommendations, or the way that I can talk or support what you're doing. And then I also like to describe the experience that you've had with e-commerce, if you want to answer that thing. And what's the one thing that we can help you with? If our organization was to reach out to you and go, hey Travis, I'm doing this thing, the social project. I'm here with Indigenous people and doing micro enterprises. We'd really like to learn about how you do what you do over in your market. And then I can go, okay, cool. This will be on the video. I can get my team to come back. We can pick up this conversation, and then we can build a relationship. And I think the intent of IndigiX was Indigenous working with Indigenous. So let's put it into practice rather than let's all be talking about this stuff. And so I think that's what I'm trying to do there. I'm trying to make it real. Cool. Everyone okay with that? Thumbs up. Can everyone put a thumbs up for me that they're all good with that side of things? Raylene, I'm going to let you lead out who should go and answer these questions.
So memories of being in school and having the teacher call on you are coming back to me now. I think I might premise, I feel like I need to admit something. This is all new to me. I know that Travis, you and I had a call before where I professed my disdain with social media and how I've never been on Facebook or anything. But I think that, e-commerce, engaging on these platforms, it's a real opportunity for Indigenous people. It takes, notwithstanding the barrier to access to workable internet and capital and things like that, I think it makes things a lot more accessible for us. Whilst at the moment I don't have a personal interest in e-commerce, it is something that interests me. I think you know, the way that I see it is there's, like you said, you can move high volumes of product, you can move small volumes of very valuable product, or you can have services. So I think I need some time to digest that, but I would welcome anybody else here on the call, because I think that you've probably thought through this a lot more than I have. So maybe if you have an interest or you've been thinking about something, I encourage you to raise your hand and tell us about it.
We've
Okay.
got one. We've got a winner chicken dinner. We've got
Yeah.
two.
Let's go, Leighton. You're on mute.
Hi, Leighton here from Canada. I'm curious about your future opinion on merging short video like TikTok with e-commerce and what that looks like in the coming years.
Yeah, okay, cool. Jump straight into there. So remember I talked about there's a system, traffic and the start of the system. Second part is the store that converts. Third part is the autoresponder. So with TikTok and social media, it's the first element. So a lot of people spend time on those social media things. All it is, and from an e-commerce perspective, is a way to get people from your social media account, from your Facebook account, from your TikTok account, from your Instagram account, and so forth, to come back into your store. So some of the best ways that I've seen that really work, and I'm not as familiar with TikTok, but across the other social media platforms, is where you might have an Indigenous person telling their stories. So the first element would be if they had a product, a micro product, they would be talking about, hey, here's my, and say as a dress for an Indigenous person made this beautiful dress. So here's my beautiful dress. Here's all the product and features I've got, and they're demonstrating, they're showing it. Look, I really like double stitching here that they've got in this, and it's really light and it's great for summer. So they would do that as the first video. Then they would be followed up with a second video, which is, you know, it would be talking about the experience of how they choose dresses. So they talk about the product first. They talk about how the decision criteria of how they're choosing dresses, and what they're actually doing is they're influencing the purchase decision of the purchaser around that. And then the third video would be an offer. So, hey, if you buy it today or in the next week, I'm going to give you a 20% discount code. So there'll be a series of, so that's how I would leverage TikTok or any other social media. I'd have 3 videos. It doesn't have to have high production value. You know, using a phone is perfectly fine. In fact, it's better than a high production value. People are skeptical of high production value these days. So you need to go with phones. And then that's how I would apply TikTok. I've seen that really well. I've seen the other thing around TikTok that I've seen is like those that have huge audiences. There's 2 elements to that. First, you need to understand whether their audience is bought or purchased or purchased audience, or is it a highly engaged audience? Engaged means that people are liking, commenting, and sharing your content. If they're liking, commenting, sharing your content, then that's an engagement. And if there's a lot of people doing that, then the TikTok influencer is popular. And then what you could do as an entrepreneur selling your product is do a joint venture with a TikTok entrepreneur. And you would say to them, hey, if you promote my product to your audience, because it's highly engaged, I'll give you a commission on every sale that you make. I'll give you a special commission code, and you promote that to your audience, and every sale, I'll send you a check every week for that amount. Then the TikTok person takes it, adds their creativity. It might be a shoe or a dress, and then they would do something creative, bringing their own uniqueness into it about that product or that dress or that that product. Yeah, and then that's how. And what happens is they'd be driving traffic and back into the store. Yeah. So does that answer your question? That's a tactic of how they're applying it.
Yeah, that's the technicality behind and the traffic. Do you have an opinion about the usage of scarce limited resources like our time, that if somebody is launching a product, whether you're allocating more time to your TikTok account or designating it for any one of the other social media platforms where we're going in the future?
That's a good question. I think the time needs to be put into, partly building an audience, which is what you're talking about. The TikTok is audience means followers. It's a lot easier if you're starting to sell a product if you have a following. And so that is one approach, but it's not the only approach. It depends on the individual. If you're good, great, and you're an extrovert, then TikTok, creating that audience is easy. If you're an introvert, then I think you're better off spending your time in the business, setting all the structures up, and then getting someone else or employing someone else who's an extrovert to do an influencer strategy to drive that traffic. So I think it's horses for courses for the different types of personalities that are out there. That would be my take on it.
Okay.
Thank you. Brother.
Eugene,
Got it, bro. From the land of many chiefs.
Exactly. And we can all talk almost as well. Hey, no, look, that's great. Just a couple of things in terms of answering the quarter on e-commerce. The particular bent that I've got in here, we in partnership, our family business, in partnership with one of our tribes, runs a waka experience at the lakefront. So it's a tourism experience and things. And so we're interested because one of the things that we found was in the before times, before COVID, a lot of tourism experiences were sold through resellers. Now, the information that I'm getting right now is that those resellers are all gone. The direct to consumer is far more going to be the way of the future. And interestingly, New Zealand tourism is certainly pushing really hard. Our new tourism markets need to be culturally authentic, genuine experiences. So that gives you a wee bit of background to this. But what I was interested, so I've taken lots of notes and that's fine. But I guess the comments that I wanted to add just in terms of this was, interestingly, there was a lot of e-commerce activity in Te Arawa during the COVID lockdown. For our Canadian relations, we locked down in Aotearoa. Travis, was it 6 weeks or 8 weeks?
I can't remember, something like that. Yeah. And that was a total lockdown. Like no business, no shops opened, no restaurants open. You were allowed to go out for a walk with your dog. That was it. So, and where I'm from, there's a number of tourism and hospitality businesses that closed down really fast. What was interesting was that a Facebook page called Te Arawa Tautoko was set up, and that was where Māori-owned businesses could advertise their services to get customers. And that was where our people were supporting our own. I got a fencer to do some work. I organised some catering through those groups. But what was interesting, that was open to all of Facebook. So through those distribution channels, they got more direct business that way, simply by engaging in e-commerce in that way. Another thing that I wanted to add was a number of artists from the New Zealand Māori Arts and Crafts Institute, which is here in Rotorua, that closed within, I think, a week of our lockdown. So they actually were using e-commerce to sell their products as culturally authentic, but as a distribution channel that people could access when they couldn't shop in person. So when you look at the ability to extend your market and also to operate when you can't have a physical presence, those were some of the key drivers, particularly for our artists that produce unique products. And this touches on the previous comment I had. As you know, Travis, there's plenty of people cranking out plastic copies of our art, but the ability for the customer to engage with an Indigenous artist and buy the real thing, I think is a real strength. And just the last thing that I wanted to add in, Travis, I assume you know Inez White, and I understand she's a Indigenous ambassador for Shopify, which I think is, she's the lead. She's the lead globally.
Yeah, and Shopify's Canadian owned, I think.
Yeah. Shopify is a beast. Yeah.
But I know that Inez has certainly talked about Shopify has specific targets to increase
Indigenous business through
Yes,
that
it is.
platform. So that may be one more thing. So yeah, look, those were just points for consideration for the group.
Excellent, kōrero, bro. Love that. Excellent. So what I'm hearing from you, what people are thinking about that, what I'm hearing from you, different examples you've just demonstrated of how Indigenous businesses and organizations are using e-commerce to survive and thrive in a post-COVID world, a crazy one, crazy COVID world.
I have a question, Travis.
Yeah.
So through your studies and your multiple PhDs in the subject, where are we going? Like, where are we going to be in 10 years, do you think?
That's a big call. Well, I reckon the world is going to be totally changed, and humans will be redundant in many jobs. Artificial intelligence and robotics, which are already here, will take those, and we are going to have to, look at our uniqueness around creativity, outside the box around relationships, and look at, how do we work in that new era. I think one thing that's not considered in a artificial intelligent world is there are new jobs going to be created. If you think back post the internet boom, Google didn't exist. Who would have thought that if I put it this way, I mean, I taught an older, mature lady, 70-year-old, about e-commerce, and she had no background. I'll just give you this context of the story. No background in e-commerce. And I was showing her Google. And I said to her, look, fire, which means mature lady, enter what you're searching for. You want to search for something, enter those words into that square, that box there. She was like, in there, boy. And she's going, oh yeah. And then she started writing, and she couldn't spell. She's, I just don't worry about spelling, just put it in and then see what comes. And she pushed the enter button, and then boom, all these different things popped out. And she was just stunned. What? I don't even have to spell, and I didn't even have to know the knowledge, like how to get it. She was just blown away. And now it's normalized behavior. But pre that, who would have thought that existed? Now post, if you look at all the jobs that are coming out of it, now we've got SEO, search engine optimization. Now we have e-commerce, and all there's a proliferation of other jobs, TikTok stars, like YouTubers, traffic experts, all these other jobs appeared out of it. So, one thing's for sure, there's going to be change, and it's not going to be as it was before. And I think it's to survive is about adaptation. How fast can you adapt to the new context?
You know what? I think I would agree with that. And I think maybe I'm being a bit theoretical about this, but when I reflect on, how many decades ago you used to just go down to your local shop, you'd have a relationship with that shop owner, you'd get most of your things from that shop, and then there was the big box stores, right? So commodified purchasing and things. And then you had access to Amazon, where you could get anything that you wanted pretty much at the click of a button delivered to your door. I feel like what people are maybe missing right now, and maybe this is the COVID world, but it's that connection. And I think that e-commerce offers that opportunity for connection without that physicality. So building relationships with your customers, building that brand, etc. With TikTok and all these other things, you can have that connection. But I think that that's also one thing that Indigenous people are really good at doing, because that's the basis of our values, right? Our interconnectedness with each other, with the land, with humans, more than humans. So I really hope that there's going to be a clear place for us to be, whether it's 5, 10, however many years down the line, to be on the front of this. And I don't know, maybe it does relate to connection.
Yeah, no, those are good points.
Miles, I think, was next. Go ahead, Miles.
Yeah, I had a question. You'd mentioned, so you had, I guess, what sounded like a not-for-profit helping with the development. I'll use my hands because it messed up the background now. A not-for-profit that helped with the development and the governance, you're saying, and then the Nuku hope I'm saying that right, on the business side. I'm trying to develop. I've identified a pain where I'm developing a business solution, and it would clearly fall into maybe a not-for-profit, but I don't want to fall into the trap of, then you're constantly, because it's not making money, that you're constantly needing to raise funds for that. And so I'm trying to turn it into a for-profit business. Maybe there's some freemium model, but maybe if you could talk about how you separated or the interrelation between those two elements. Are they standalone entities? What is maybe the relationship between them?
Yeah, standalone entities. They're both limited liability, in our structures. It's a limited liability company, which means we're not actually a charity or not-for-profit. So we specifically chose that. So we pay taxes on our profits, and that's just a pathway. In New Zealand, we have structures where you don't have to pay taxes if you're a non-for-profit. But I don't know what's in Canada around that side of things. Like if you want to, there's not enough time here now, but I can give you a pathway to learning about where to find that information. The technique is called business model innovation. Business model innovation. Chuck that in the box. Look for Oster. His name starts with OST. Oster. It's a Swiss name. It's a little bit hard to describe. Osterwalder or something like that. If you look for him, he's the guru globally for business model innovation. He describes different processes and pathways to find different business models, and gives you a method to find that. I think that's worthwhile exploring those, because he will give you ideas. For example, he'll demonstrate Uber's business model versus Airbnb's business model versus Amazon's business model versus a not-for-profit business model. And so he describes those. And the only way to know what works is to test it in the market.
Right.
Yeah, because in my past, things that I thought wouldn't work did, and things that I thought bloody rubbish, they did work. They did really well. Yeah. So the market speaks.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. And that's a good way to ground it. You're right. Get it in front of the customer. If it doesn't work, reiterate. Right. That's it. You touched on that.
That's it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Sarah, you raised your hand.
Yeah, I just had kind of a quick question. I was kind of inspired by Raylan's question of what's the future? And I was just wondering, how are you preparing the next generation for this future of e-commerce? Is New Zealand taking steps of teaching, coding in high schools, or teaching innovation and entrepreneurship? And I don't know if you can answer that question. It's a little bit out of this realm, but I was just wondering if those are things that you've also thought about when you're talking about strategy.
Yeah. No, we do. I can answer or talk to some of that. Yes, New Zealand is doing, coding schools. Largely, they aren't driven by the traditional government channels. They're driven by social entrepreneurs, similar to myself, who are doing innovative things on the cutting edge, and who put forward a business case to get government funding. So it's normally social entrepreneur led. Is the interesting characteristic around that. Ourselves, what we see this is an advantage. This sums up the heading of where we all started, which is we see this as an advantage for our people, Indigenous people, to compete globally. E-commerce is a leveler of through the use of technology, as a leveler for small groups of people like our Indigenous. And you can be remote. For example, I can be working in my homeland, my village, which has a population of 300, everyone's farming or forestry or fishing, and I can use, as long as I got internet connection, I can tap into the internet. We manufacture products in China, so I don't have to own the product factory anymore. I just contract them to produce my widget, and then I get them, I don't even touch the widget. I get them to send the widget through outsourcing to another company, and then it lands in America, and then I give it to Amazon, they warehouse it, and then they send it out to their customers. And I can get a product anywhere in America in 2 days. In 2 days, anywhere in America. And that is all, and then what happens, Amazon, once it's sent it out, it pays us every 2 weeks. So if we think about all that, that's driven off a laptop. To me, it's the greatest chance, which is why we're doubling down on this area to help our people, including our younger people, to learn about how to exploit the technologies of e-commerce. Because once before, you had to purchase all that, you had to own the factory, you had to have people in market in America setting up, and you had to have a sales team, and all that is now, is being leveled out by the use of internet. So I think that there's an opportunity for us, our Indigenous people, to exploit that technology, and that's why we're down the e-commerce channel, and why we're promoting Kahal, which is why we're working with Shopify to take that program to Canada and other Indigenous markets globally to achieve our vision, to improve the lives of 10 million Indigenous. This is one way that we can do that. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody. I'm mindful of the time. That was a really informative, really quick session. So thank you. Thank you, Travis. Yeah, I think I will, if it's all right, I'll circle your email address out to the attendees today, Travis. And
Yeah,
if
no
anybody
problem.
is watching this on YouTube, please feel free to get in touch. I might just do one last plug for IndigiX. I and Chris Karamia Inslee created this because we felt a need to connect Indigenous people and Indigenous professionals, and because I personally was feeling very disconnected. So, the program is still developing. We will do more capacity building workshops. So if you have any ideas of things that you want to learn about, let us know. And yeah, we just really welcome you into this network. It's so exciting. And I think I echo what Travis said. There's so much opportunity for e-commerce and these other tools available to everybody else to be a great leveler for Indigenous people and our families and our communities and our nations. So thank you again. I might ask Travis just to close with a karakia.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, okay. So I'll just say our karakia. Let peace be the pandemic. Let kindness be the contagion. Let love be the miracle. Mauri ora. Thank you, everybody.
Waiho. Ka kite koutou. See you later.
Ka kite. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Miigwech, Travis.